Onkologia.edu.pl. Wiedza w zasięgu ręki.
Welcome in our OnkoTalks. Today we are at the second Polish Young Oncologists Forum, and we are here with our OnkoTalks Conference Edition. My guest here is Professor Powles, who is an editor-in-chief of Annals of Oncology.
Nice hey, Pauline.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm fine. I really enjoyed your talk about scientific...
Well, the only person who did.
I think, it was really complex, and I took a lot of notes. So
okay.
I have a lot of questions.
Great, let's do it. I'm up for it.
But I want to start with if you like to describe the scientific word right now in 3 words.
Scientific world in 3 words. Dynamic.
Okay.
I think it is dynamic. I think things are the cancer world. I just do cancer.
Of course, cancer. We are focusing on
great, because I don't know much about I don't know much about anything else. The cancer world's very dynamic, changing very quickly. Not tomorrow, in 2 weeks' time, new treatment for pancreas cancer, first ever successful treatment in a really common cancer. Every year there's a big breakthrough in cancer. So I think it's dynamic and successful. I think a second word would be precision, in that we are beginning to identify patients who need treatment, and we're beginning to work in a more personalised approach. There's things like circulating tumour DNA, where you do blood tests and we'll work out cancer cells from there, and tissue-based biomarkers too. So that's quite exciting. And then a third word, I've got something going through my mind that sort of is around, I think there's also this issue, I'm not sure we're broadcasting our message to people. I think we speak to each other a lot. You and I are chatting now. We're both kind of oncology doctors or whatever, and we're sort of talking to each other. We don't talk to the general public very much. And so I'm not sure we're broadcasting this information very successfully outside of our echo chambers. I think what we're doing is robust. I think it's accurate. I think it's factually correct. I think the treatments are making a huge difference. The outcomes of the patients who I treat have doubled since I've been involved, since the last 10 years. And so I think huge progress is being made. But when you go on the internet, you get the impression that actually it's much grayer than that. So I'm not sure we're broadcasting it well. So dynamic, personalised, and the third word, I'm going to put a word like concerning, or I'm not even sure what the word would be, but maybe you could come up with one that's better.
But how do you think can we get out of our bubble? Because as you said, we're in our echo channel with doctors talking to doctors. But to get out of those bubble, to get more...
How do we do that?
Yeah, how to do it? Do you have some kind of advices, especially for young people? We are at the Young Oncologists Forum, so... Yeah,
so I don't know the answer to that question, because clearly if I knew, I would have done it successfully, and I've not done that. So, look, I don't know how scientific this conversation is, but this is what I think. I do think there is a need to, for oncologists to take part in wider dialogue beyond just the patients you see in front of you in hospitals. We do clinics, we see lots of patients, they come and see us in clinic and then they leave. There need to be representatives, not necessarily me, I'm more than happy not to do this, but we do need to find people in our group who are happy to talk on the patient forums and the internet sites and on Instagram, and where a lot of the dialogue is taking place. Because I think funding of cancer research in the US from a university perspective has been cut recently. And I think that academic work coming out of Europe is not as dynamic as it could be, certainly not as dynamic as what's happening in the US and potentially Japan as well. Not in all areas, but in some areas. I think Japan and the US, from a clinical trial perspective, are moving faster. And so I think there is a need for Europeans to become more widely engaged than we are at the moment, in my opinion.
And in your lecture, you talked about scientific publishing and all the way, and those kind of pressure on publishing high quality research and only positive studies. And don't you think right now this field became really competitive, and it's hard to do high quality research, especially having in mind that all those AI tools and things that are implementing our clinical and scientific work.
So doing dynamic, successful, robust research, which is clinically impactful, is like, it's not as difficult as landing on the moon by any stretch of the imagination. Certainly not since 1969, but it should be taken in a similar way. It's not something that you're likely to be able to do in the back of your shed with a can full of patients that you see once a month. The likelihood is that if you want to do, if a group wants to do successful research or an individual who wants to do successful research, you're going to need to do it within a group. It's going to have good funding. It's going to have good university support. It's going to have a robust track record. It's going to have a series, and I talked about this, a series of, key facts to make it successful. In the same way as if you were to launch a moon project, you wouldn't do that with a handful of, road people who build roads in the back of a lorry somewhere. You'd have to get the right people in the right place. It's multidisciplinary. It involves innovation. It involves investment. And I'm not sure in oncology we're always looking at it that way. And I think there's a lot of publications. There's a lot of work going on, some of which is less robust than other bits of the work. And I think one of the questions is, how much value is that? I've got two views about that from a personal perspective. If you're in the development part of your career, you have to do some work, and that's where a lot of the training takes place. And I think it's very valid. And just because it's not in a brilliant journal and just because it's not changing the world doesn't mean it's not worthwhile, because that's how people train. If you want to become a brilliant athlete or tennis player or play a musical instrument, people say it's 10,000 hours of work. And the same applies here. I don't think you can wake up one morning and say, I'm going to cure cancer this afternoon. I mean, Elon Musk probably could. But beyond Elon, I think the rest of us mortal people need to do that education, training, development, success, failure, try again. And so I think that's part of the journey. So yeah, of course there's successful research, which does have parallels to landing on the moon. I suspect it's as complicated as that. I mean, I think one of the American presidents, I think it was Kennedy, said he'd land on the moon, and then Nixon came after him, and Nixon said, we'll cure cancer. Was it Nixon or Carter? I don't remember. And that was the 1970s. Kennedy landed on the moon in 5 years, but then we're now 50 years or 40 years down the line, and we still haven't really cured cancer yet. So it is more complicated than landing on the moon. So I think it needs to be seen as complicated as that, rather than, and I think that's the reality of where we are. And AI will help us in that journey, in curing cancer. It'll make the way we publish and broadcast and the way we work in a multidisciplinary way more complicated, because computers and AI is going to have a really important role, and we will integrate in that. But that has an important role to play.
You also mentioned, you started talking about AI right now, and you mentioned that human ideas may diminish in the AI era. Do you think we are, the researchers that we are creating and shaping right now will be, of course, sufficient, but not as creative and as creative as they used to be because of the AI, and the AI will replace our innovative thinking?
So I think AI can facilitate innovative thinking, because you can have ideas and you can use AI to channel and reform those ideas. But there is a second way, which is less human orientated, where you let AI run by itself and generate its own ideas. And if if you're a developmental part of your career and you're looking for good ideas, it's probably easier to put into a search engine, tell me 5 good ideas for curing pancreas cancer, than actually going out and trying to do it yourself. The problem with that, and I made the analogy of landing an aeroplane, is that if the computer ends up doing most of that work, and you don't do the 10,000 hours of background work to get to the place where you know what you want to do, if you don't do that, then you're never going to be in a position where you can have those innovative ideas, because you haven't got all of the knowledge that you need. So you can cut corners for the first 3 steps of the pyramid, but for a pyramid that has 40 or 50 steps, you're not going to get to level 4 or 5 or 6. And that concerns me a little bit, because there's 2 parts to it. Yeah, it goes quickly and you can do shortcuts. But then in the end, if you're not doing the homework yourself, if you never learn to land an aeroplane, because the computer always does it, then you never, when you have to land the plane, you won't be able to do it. And that concerns me a little bit.
And like coming back to those things with like learning and this kind of pressure that as young people we want to be, you know, the best, and we like we forget that at the beginning it's okay to make mistakes, and that our research, like our first research, won't be probably published in, I don't know, Name or Nature or some high...
That would be impossible. It's almost impossible to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't, if you publish a journal in a good journal within 5 years of starting the journey, that would be unrealistic. But then if you were an athlete and you wanted to get into the Olympic semi-finals,
yeah, of course you wouldn't
wouldn't
like
expect to do that
at the beginning.
You wouldn't do that in your first race.
Yeah.
You know, no one does that, or very, very few people do that. And so I think the same rules apply. I think it's about an apprenticeship, and I think there needs to, and I said it might actually, the vast majority of my early work was incredibly unsuccessful. But that's kind of okay, I think, providing it's straightforward and it's true and it's representation of what you were trying to do, and it happens that it didn't work out. And even if it did work out, it was never going to be majorly impactful. You know, giving 20 patients a drug which isn't very effective. Did a lot of that in my career. Unfortunately, I wish it was effective, but it turns out the more effective drugs are being tested elsewhere. But as time goes by, things become easier as you build up that experience.
But do you think, like, when we are building our experience and we want to publish really well papers, and of course, yeah, as we said, it's like it's okay that at the beginning they won't be like super successful, but isn't this kind of a pressure that we are putting on ourselves? Don't like support these predatory journals because they are like encouraging us to publish there. And
what's the predatory journal?
The predatory journal.
What does that mean?
It's like journals that are like some kind of aggressive with their publishing politics.
Well, they come to you and they say, and will you publish this and will you write it?
Publishing really fast, and like the review is really fast. And also at the discussion panel here, we had a discussion about the publishing in the MDPI, and like from your perspective as an editor of the
MDPI, you'll have to go with that. What is that exactly?
It's a like a publication institution.
Right.
Yeah, they have a, for example, Cancers journal there.
Right.
Yeah, and they are like known for really fast and rapid and super like quick revision and
for people just beginning their career.
Yeah. Don't you think that the fact that we are putting a pressure on us that we want to publish more and more and be better is like actually supporting this kind of aggressive politics of this publishing and scientific world? Is
what worrying you? I'm sorry, I'm asking you questions now, and I thought that wasn't the original ambition of this interview. Is what was worrying you that just you're saying we're being put under pressure to publish rubbish, and that actually it's not, and if you don't do it, you get penalised, but it's not a very constructive process because it isn't really achieving that much. It's just publishing for the sake of it. Is that what worries you?
I think it's like a complex question, because right now in Poland, the situation with publishing, it's a little bit different because those regulations that we have with applying for a residency spot, it's kind of putting on us pressure that we have to be also researchers. And
so you have to write something?
Yeah, we have to write something because we got like
so you go to one of these journals and they give you points and then it's a...
Yeah, and for me, I have like some kind of I don't know, ethical conflict with myself because I don't want to do it, and I'm.
Why don't you want to do it?
I want to do research which has a quality and value, and of course it should be like the best at the it shouldn't be the best at the beginning, but I think like a good research takes time, and we went like. They didn't build Rome in a year. It was in a day. It was the process. So I think it's the same with publishing. That it's okay to publish and to start with something smaller. I don't know, if you want to learn how to write research, you can start with like easy case report to know how to choose which data they are important, and of course it won't change much, but it's a process and like gaining experience. So I think it's not only my like a personal conflict and problem. But a lot of people, like in my
Do you have publications?
yeah, some.
What do you have?
I have one original paper, 2 revisions.
What is it?
It's about we did a survey about the among young healthcare professionals
Yeah.
about the screening and mammography in breast cancer.
Right.
Because we had this problem in Poland that not so many people there like going into mammography screening, only 30%. So we are like looking for the barriers why they don't
What did you show?
that actually young doctors, they don't talk about like prevention to patients, and also the knowledge about physical examination, like clinical breast examination, is limited.
Did you feel that publication was something which you were uncomfortable with?
No, I'm pretty proud of it.
Okay.
Because of course, from global perspective, it won't change the world, but in our like a Polish community, we like identified some barriers and some limitations that we have, and maybe how we could make better the medical education.
How did you find the publication process? How did you find it?
It was demanding. It took like a lot of time, like a month, almost a year. So like the process of collecting the data, then the statistical analysis, and then preparing the manuscript and revision, stuff like that. So I think it's a process, but it's like gaining experience.
Have you published something, or have you got an example of a publication which you felt was predatory or was something which you were uncomfortable with or less comfortable?
Like me personal?
You or your friends?
Yeah, like a lot of my friends, like they publish in like journals that are fast and
And what does fast mean?
like weeks.
Weeks.
Yes.
Right.
So for me,
so you submit something, and do you have to pay You have to pay, don't you?
Yeah, of course.
And how much is it?
It depends. Right. Sometimes it's like 100. So yeah.
Does it go on PubMed?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I haven't checked it. Yeah.
And if it doesn't go on PubMed, does it count?
But it's like but in Polish, like a system for applying for residency, it's important.
Okay.
Just because the impact factor is not that important here. We have our like own ministry list of points, so not usually the high impacted journals are on.
So everyone in Poland has got a first author publication, and it's often in something completely irrelevant.
Young doctors, yeah.
That's tragic.
Yeah, that's why.
Because it's a really bad example. Because your better example is to say that doesn't matter too much. I'm really encourage people to do some research in their career. I think it makes a lot of sense. And I can see the upside of that. Because when we started this conversation, my immediate reaction was great. Everyone's getting a chance to write something. And even if it doesn't fly, it's at least they had a go. And if they liked it, they could do it again. How do you know what you like and don't like if you don't have a go at it? But then when you come to me and say, actually, the process isn't that nice and it's putting people off, then that sounds counterproductive. I've got to tell you, to be a good doctor, you don't need to have a review article.
Not everyone have to be like a great scientist.
No. And not everyone is going to be a scientist, and not everyone's a great doctor, and many good scientists aren't particularly good doctors. But showing a skill in that science area, you understand the knowledge that you're being given, you understand the difference between what's right and wrong and what the good data is like and what guidelines. That makes sense to me. I totally understand that. I'm up for that. But I'm a bit more confused by pushing people to do research. Pushing people to publish rather than do research.
Yeah, like that's why I was asking, how do you see this kind of a pressure? Because you also talked about a lot of only publishing like positive studies, and how do you see, like, for example, the role of negative studies?
Negative studies are where we learn from mistakes.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of negative trials. I've led literally.
Yeah, but it's harder to publish the negative studies.
Listen, it depends what you're looking for in life. Jesus, I mean, this is a complicated discussion.
I'm sorry for that.
No, I'm happy with it. It's totally unrealistic to think you're only going to have positive trials. And if a positive trial, inevitably, positive trials get cited more than negative trials, because negative trials aren't taken forwards, where positive trials lead to more and lead to more, and they get re-referenced. And as they get re-referenced, you get more noise around that. So inevitably, positive results travel more than negative results. And that's just the way we move forward. The original cisplatin testis cancer data is still quoted today because it cured testis cancer. That's going to be more positive than the original pancreas study chemotherapy trials were negative. Inevitably, there's going to be positive reinforcement. We have to embrace that and celebrate it. But, it's a bit like, I guess, I don't know, it's a bit like going to make a film or whatever it might be in life and just expecting all your films to be brilliant. And inevitably,
that's impossible.
It's not possible to just do positive trials. And so when you wake up in the morning, you think, okay, what am I doing this year? I've got 4 or 5 trials. My career's a bit different now than it was 10 years ago, but I've got 4 or 5 trials reading out this year. But I would have 4 or 5 most years, but they just weren't quite as big but I expected 3 of them to be positive. And I think in the end, it's turned out 2 of them are positive, not 3. And 2 of them, 1's 1,000 patient this, another 5, completely negative. And that will end up that's going to end up in, if I expected it all to be positive, it's just not realistic that way. So I would expect, in the first 13 randomized trials, they were negative. That's so some resilience, there's nothing else. So I would just be much more pragmatic around that. I don't think, one of the things that worries me about our conversation is the desire to chase the result rather than the desire to go through the process. And the process, unless you're doing science which is changing the way patients are treated, the process is as important as the result. Positive results from a patient, from humans, we talked about that at the beginning, from a human's perspective, the only thing that really matters for them is, does this drug work better than that drug? Does this procedure better than that drug? Is that biomarker better than that biomarker? Not 5 cell lines where one cancer grows a bit faster. That's of no interest for them personally. It's interest in reading a book about how, I'm interested in all sorts of different things. I'm reading about quantum mechanics at the moment. I'm interested in quantum mechanics. I find it really odd. But in the end, it doesn't affect my life. If I dropped it tomorrow, it made no difference. But, one of my friends whose wife's got breast cancer, her treatment matters. And we need to distinguish between those people and those work that are affecting people walking down the street in that cancer centre, and that work which is for those people who are trying to develop ideas to develop into those treatments, and for those people who are taking part in the journey, like the guy sitting in the cockpit of the airline pilot next to the pilot, who's learning how to do that journey. And we have to accommodate for all of those pieces. We can't just do research that changes patients' lives every day, number one. And of course, we can't just do research on cell lines where we're all just publishing in these journals and no one ever reads, but people going through that process at least understand the direction in which they're going in.
And summing up our conversation.
I talked too much, I'm sorry.
That was really intense. What do you think? How to become a good researcher these days?
I don't know. I think good research. I think innovation is important in research by definition. If you're going to research, the word suggests you're looking for something, which means you're not going to necessarily be given it. So I think innovation in research feels important. If you don't want to innovate, is this the right thing for you to do? I think it's a fair statement. I'm not sure. I'm sure lots of people disagree. I think you have to, I'm not particularly organised, by the way, but I think there does need to be a degree of structure in what you do. People in the garden shed with hundreds of bits of paper, like the guy in Back to the Future, I can't remember his name, with all the bits of paper and that seems, it's so innovation and organisation personally, I think team working is incredibly important, and it's everything I've talked about today involves a huge team. In fact, doing a randomised phase 3 study will involve a team of literally thousands of people. Literally, because you've got 200 sites.
Yeah, like medicine's like a team sport.
Yeah, I think the majority of medicine is, and I think research is a big team sport, ranging all the way from the statisticians who might never see a patient to people on the front line, the pharmacists who are actually giving out the drugs. They're all taking part in this journey, and it literally is thousands of people.
Okay, thank you so much for this conversation, and thank you for watching our OnkoTalk.
Onkologia.edu.pl. Wiedza w zasięgu ręki.